So in topic 2, we're also going to talk about the types of spending. There's really two main types of spend, and we'll break these down a little bit. There's direct and indirect. Pretty straightforward here. So direct is direct inputs to your firm's final product or service. So these would be direct inputs to your cost of goods sold or cost of sales. So they're often your largest spend category, especially if you're a manufacturer. Think about it. If you're manufacturing a computer, you're probably going to be spending most of your money on the electronics that go into the computer. If you're a manufacturer of furniture, wood might be your most largest spend category. So purchasing tends to be the most sophisticated or well developed also. So when you figure out, all this stuff, these are going to be the things that you do extremely well. You have these processes down pat. You dream about these because they're so ingrained into the purchasers, your purchasing agents, that they dream about it. They can explain them forward and backwards. But on the other hand, we have our indirect materials. So these do not go directly into the product, but they facilitate its creation. So these are things, for example, like the cost of personal protective equipment. The eye goggles, or perhaps safety boots, rubber gloves, face masks, face shields. All this kind of stuff helps make the actual product. But this type of spend doesn't actually go into your cost of goods. So that's why it's indirect. So you can also think of indirect as your spending on toilet paper for your business, because your people need to use the bathroom, and by them using the bathroom, that facilitates their ability to manufacture products. I know it's kind of a roundabout way to think about it, but you can think of it that way. What about accounting? Keeping track of your finances indirectly helps the manufacturing process. The sales also would help indirectly impact your manufacturing. So essentially, if it directly impacts your product or service, it's direct. If it does not directly impact it, it's considered indirect. So under indirect, we usually have a couple other categories. So we have our MRO, maintenance, repair, and operations. So this is indirect spend. These are items needed to run our operations, our factories, warehouses, some retail centers. So think about that. Maintenance. We need to keep the machines. You might need to add oil, grease. Might need to have them checked every so often. If something breaks, you need to have it repaired. And then you have your general operating expenses. So this might be considered the electricity the machine uses. If it uses steam, maybe the natural gas that heats the fires to create the steam. It could be all these things. But a lot of it is characterized by the multiple small dollar purchases. Because when you're doing maintenance and you need to add grease to a machine, a tube of grease might be $5. Well, you're not buying $50,000 worth of it. You're buying maybe $50 worth because you're going to do maybe a couple machines to do maintenance on them. So if we move over to capital equipment. So this is machinery and equipment used to produce other goods. Of course, this is another indirect spend. And then on our balance sheets, these are assets that typically last longer than 1 year. So we have our depreciation, which will last longer than a year. These are infrequent. We're not buying equipment all the time, and they're usually high dollar purchases. For example, if you're buying a copy machine can cost about $30,000. Well, hopefully you're not buying a copy machine frequently. You might be buying one or two here and there if you're outfitting an office, but most companies will lease a copy machine. But those are choices you can make when you're in purchasing. Buy versus lease. But these are also complex buys because of the high degree of technical specifications. And there's usually a complicated warranty and service agreements with these capital equipment purchases. Think about buying a car. For most people, that is the most expensive thing they've ever purchased. And they probably tried to offer you a warranty. They probably tried to offer you some other type of service agreement like prepaid maintenance and some other things. Maybe gap insurance. Well, they're trying to load you up as a salesman. They're trying to make you buy more because they'll get a better commission. But that's kind of the same thing, but on this type of equipment, you want the warranty, you want the service agreements. Because when you get a new piece of equipment, what's the odds that some of your people might be trained in that specific piece of equipment when it comes to repairs? And usually there's a pay for performance contract. So when we're talking about these warranties and service agreements, usually you will negotiate the prices for the services and the warranty repairs up front. And then you pay for it as you need it. So services. So this can be direct or indirect depending on the type of company you have. And as you probably already know, services are intangible. You can't physically put your hand on a service. Like, can you grab your cable TV, the actual TV show coming through? No. But it's a service. So it may be associated with a good, your service contract, or a cell phone. But purchasing strategies need to develop a clear statement of work. You need to define what is going to be done. And how are you going to measure to make sure they're performing to that statement of work? So we have a little bit more going into depth here. Direct materials, indirect materials. Like we've already said, direct inputs into your firm's final product or service is direct materials. And then indirect is materials that do not go directly into a product, but they facilitate its creation. So some important concepts to remember here. Direct input to cost of goods sold or cost of sales for direct materials. Often the largest spending category, especially for manufacturing. And purchasing strategies tend to be the most sophisticated and well developed within the company because you do it all the time. So it's well defined. And then for indirect, any item that does not fall in the direct material category. And it's making it very broadly defined, these indirect materials. And sometimes indirect materials don't have separate tracking. So you can't say, okay, we purchased this item and it was going to go to this piece of equipment and this equipment helps make this. Sometimes it's just marked down as maintenance. And that's all you know about that purchase. Well, what did they do maintenance on? So it's hard to keep track of some of these indirect materials purchases. Every company is different, but most companies, it's extremely difficult to figure it out. So when we talk about that MRO, the maintenance, repair, and operating expenses here, items need to run operations. In fact, what do we need to run our factories, our warehouses, and some retail centers? We need toilet paper, right? But that might be under a different category. Now these three categories, MRO, capital goods, and services, these are just general categories. You can have 50 categories, you might have 100 categories, but these are three main ones you'll generally see. So MRO, the maintenance of the factory. The roof is leaking. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to fix it. It's going to be maintenance or repair. The warehouse, okay, the forklift damaged something as it was turning a corner. Well, that's probably going to be a repair. The forklift needs regular annual maintenance. Well, that's now maintenance under the MRO category. So there's a lot of small dollar purchases when it comes to these. Capital goods or capital equipment. like we said before, these are infrequent and high dollar purchases. So there's a lot of complexity to these decisions. There's a high degree of technical specification and often sold with complex warranty and service agreements. Make sure that you know everything about what you're sourcing. It won't hurt to have the people that are going to receive this equipment be part of the team that helps procure it. It doesn't hurt to expand your team on something this complicated. Have some engineers, have the manager that's going to be over it, have an actual employee that's going to be operating the machine. Have all these people there so when you're talking to the company to source this machine or this capital equipment, you know what you're talking about and you can make sure it's exactly what they wanted. And then our services, now these are to support the business, but they don't produce a tangible product. So think about accounting. Accounting supports the business. Human resources supports the business. Marketing supports the business. But there's no tangible product out of all these departments. So another way to look at it is they're associated with a good. So like cell phones, you pay for cell phone service, but you probably purchase the actual phone itself. So you need to make sure that the statement of work is accurate, and then a way to measure how you're keeping the service provider accountable. So here's some other categories, such as operations and research and development. So these add value. So operations lowers costs by ensuring reasonable prices and quality standards. And they can contribute to lean initiatives by finding high quality suppliers capable of rapid just-in-time deliveries. However, operations does have conflicts. Sometimes they're overly concerned with the short-term cost, and they may compromise on quality or delivery because they're trying to get that quick win with a short-term cost reduction maybe. They might try to move suppliers and they don't know how that new supplier is going to perform. And then finally, they fail to develop the supplier. Or they're willing to support special needs or just-in-time or just-in-sequence delivery. So we need to make sure our supplier that we may move to because we're trying to cut costs maybe can produce and perform to the level we need. Research and development, we need to find suppliers for new inputs. In research and development, they'll say, oh, we want this crazy new thing. Well, where are we going to find that? And they should give us a couple leads, talk to this company, talk to that company. So research and development and purchasing are not going to agree on the reasonable cost, quality, and design trade-offs. Research and development is going to want the best quality for the best design, and they don't care what the cost is. Where purchasing cares about cost and quality, and maybe there will be some compromise on design. So that's where you need to learn and talk to your people, talk with these other departments, and figure out where you can find some middle ground. Sales and marketing. So they're part of the sales and operations planning. So they come together and help inform purchasing about a product change, or maybe how the customers are starting to look for different areas or different characteristics of products. So that can help the supply chain or the purchasers know that, hey, we need to do this. And we can talk to research and development and see what they want to do about that. And maybe we start sourcing something different. But however, when it comes to this, purchasing may not inform sales about a supplier change. So because we've made a change in purchasing, which makes a change to the product, marketing may not be aware of that. So finally, inventory. Now, if we can get our inventories right, we can have just-in-time delivery or we can have consignment inventory. But essentially, we're trying to reduce our carrying cost of inventory. Because inventory that's sitting around doing nothing costs money. We don't want to be spending that money. So we have some problems with carrying inventory. Well, one is forecasting. Forecasting, hopefully you get an accurate forecast, but chances are it's not accurate. So we might try to buy in bulk to take advantage of a price discount. But then our inventory costs are going to go up because we have too much inventory. So we might try to push just-in-time inventory to our sales and marketing folks. But then all of a sudden we have a run on our product and now we ran out. So we have a disruption. Or our supplier can't produce to our demand and we have a disruption. All of these possible things can provide a conflict when we're trying to add value to the process. So next we're going to start talking about working as a team and how do we manage these cross-functional relations. That way when we're working together, we are actually working together instead of everybody just doing their own thing and saying they work together. So why don't we try to find out how to do that? We'll look into that in the next video.